Alrighty, so we're doing a horror franchise marathon. My plan is to make it through Silent Hill games today and every day this month, so I can make it through, I guess, two Silent Hill games, a Resident Evil game. Um, let's see what else. I also have a franchise called Fallout that I'm playing, but that's my open world game. I've I love the options because when you're gaming in today's world, you have options, and there's just so many options out there. And to find an option that works best for you is really crucial. I and you really have to know what you want. For me, I want a balance of escapism, where I have complete control over my character and what I do with it. I'm more focused on escaping into creating a new avatar, but not to the point where I'm playing The Sims, uh, where there's more combat involved and conflict and teamwork involved. Like, I haven't even thought to download The Sims. I've never played The Sims. Maybe one day when I'm 70, I'll play The Sims, but it's not my thing. I think right now in my life, I like a balance of both conflict and collaboration. Because that's the thing, when you're playing a game, you're experiencing two things: the conflict between you and the game and the players and everything else, and the collaboration that happens between the creative collaboration that happens between you and everybody else, which is a different aspect of gaming these days, which you get in multiplayer games, which is what I have. I have a balance of open world collaboration games that allow the creative process to flow. And it's funny too, because the reason why I chose the game I have is because there's a few options out there. Like I said, I had to be honest with myself. I chose the game that I have simply because it resonates with the themes in my book that I'm writing, post-apocalyptic world, so, that kind of deal. But outside of that, I like narrative games, more specifically games that bring about fear in me, that feeling of fear. Because right now in my life, I'm dealing with the full-on experience of fear at its most potent level, where it's debilitating. Now, I'm taking steps to conquer its effects in my life, but fear it's one of those emotions like love that it's pre-programmed in our system, I think, where you can pretend you're not afraid and you're not in love, but guess what? Everybody's afraid. Everybody's in love. And if you're not, then you're not human. I know that's a broad and rather uh, astute observation, I guess, but the thing is, when you think about it, unless you're emotionally immature or a psychopath, these are human experiences. We all experience them, I guess is what I'm saying. And when you're gaming, you're escaping for a moment, for a few hours, your experience with the world as we've created it, and you're joining in to a make-believe world. So it takes energy, it takes the will to explore it, and knowing what you like and what you don't like. Some games, they're you gotta have a good balance of everything, really. And I I have a lot of games on my my account, but I don't play too many of them. In fact, in my collection, I only have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games installed, which I think is a good amount. Honestly, that's one game for every day of the week. If I wanted to do it that way, which honestly I don't, because I get bored with playing with one game for extended periods of time. So I kind of filter through all the games every day. So a few hours on one game, a few hours on another game, so on and so forth. So I can technically I could do 7 hours or 8 hours. Yeah, I could do 7 or 8 hours a day gaming on my days off if I wanted to, which is pretty unrealistic for me. But if I wanted to complete, if I have a goal of completing, at the very least, the storyline, the narratives of the games I have that provide that, which I have 6 that provide a narrative that you can work through, and of those 6, there's like 600 hours of gameplay between those, because there's at least, if I'm being thorough and if I'm factoring in all things that are affecting how long it takes me to work through the narratives, it could take me up to a month to work through just one narrative. So that's why I'm pacing myself and being strategic about it, and I'm streaming my progress. So that's kind of cool. I'm developing a cadence, and I think that's what you have to do as an adult. You have to set aside time every day where you have the inclination to really escape and really indulge yourself in the games themselves. And for me, I had to pick some games that I personally enjoy. The narratives are pretty interesting, and they deal with things that, to a degree, all resonate with the themes in my book, which I think is important to mention. I have 2 Star Wars games. One is the latest Jedi Survivor game that has come out in the franchise, which is a narrative all unto itself, separate from any Star Wars franchise. I think that's cool because it's a cyber, I guess, a dark, futuristic, dark future. I guess, sci-fi, horror, I guess. And then I have a whimsical side of Star Wars with the Lego Star Wars franchise, which runs through the entire narrative in a kind of fun, kind of neat way, which I think is kind of cool. So that's I have a couple of kind of whimsical games, I guess, if you could call it that. Final Fantasy, even though it's not whimsical, it's in some ways kind of more lighthearted than the horror games I have. So I try to strike a balance between whimsical and laughable games that provide humor and escape into a more whimsical fantasy world, and games that provide a more grounded and horror-based experience. That's our survival games, pretty much. Survival horror, which is what Silent Hill and Resident Evil games are. And as far as Resident Evil games, there's not too many Resident Evil games that I can play all at once, because there's just so many. So I choose to play one at a time and kind of really indulge myself in each game, because to really play that many games all at once is unrealistic. It's like trying to watch 8 different movies all at once. You just can't do it. Because these games you can't just sit down, even if you're like God, you can't sit down and play them all the way through in one setting. They take at least a few settings to work through. And that's if you're playing them through the way they're intended to. So, but for me, I'm a slow player, and I kind of just take my time. So I have the latest Resident Evil, or not the latest, but one of the latest Resident Evil games that are worth playing. I plan on playing all of them all the way through, but right now I'm just focusing on the latest ones, to really take advantage of the graphics and the power of the PS5. So I'm playing Resident Evil Biohazard, which is the 7th installment, and then I have the Silent Hill games, which I have, Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill F. And of the Silent Hill games, I think those are pretty much the only ones available on the PS5. And you have to consider that these franchises, they've released their series on different consoles, so you literally have to buy sometimes a separate console if you want to enjoy uh, another installment of a franchise that you like. So I'm not at that point. Um, I'm perfectly happy, which I think a lot of people are, because these are standalone stories for the most part. Um, so, but that being said, I think 3 survival horror games, 2 whimsical games, uh, and or I'm sorry, 3 survival horror games and three more whimsical games that provide a kind of a escape, but not like a survival horror kind of sense. More like, I mean, yeah, Jedi Survivor is technically a surviving game, but you're not up against like monsters or ghosts and goblins. You're up against, I guess, the dark side of the Force versus or tyranny, that kind of deal. So it's an interesting. I wouldn't call Star Wars a horror film. It's definitely sci-fi, spiritual sci-fi maybe, but it's sci-fi, and sci-fi is more whimsical than horror. So as far as sci-fi goes, I also have, um, or actually, I have 3 sci-fi games and 3 survival horror games and technically one fantasy game. Final Fantasy is my only fantasy game, and my 3 sci-fi games are Fallout, which is post-apocalyptic sci-fi, and 2 Star Wars games, which are, space sci-fi. So, but yeah, you have to be honest and realistic about the games that you play and whether or not you really enjoy them. And I have, like I said, I have a collection of other games that I've purchased. I think that's what a lot of people do. They purchase or hopefully not too many games, but I would say between 10 and 50 games. That's what most people purchase. But they only can keep about 4 to 5 games on their console, depending on how big they are. So it kind of forces you to really decide what games you really want to play versus, because it takes some time to download them. Some of them could take up to 8 hours to download sometimes. So, not saying that it's that big of an issue, but like for me, I actually sometimes have to play a game before I know if I like it, unfortunately. And that's what I kind of have. I have some games on my shelf that I purchased that I really don't like to play because either the graphics are no good, or I haven't had time to work through them, or they're not something that resonate with me. Like for example, I have the Twisted Metal series, which were nostalgic video games from my youth, but unfortunately I've been spoiled by today's graphics, and to play them on these nice TVs, I think the only way I can really play, and I think that's the problem with playing older games on newer systems, is like it's like watching a black and white picture on an HD TV. It's like it actually is distracting because the quality of the technology enhances the the um, lack of power driving the technology of the time. So I guess those games would be better off being played on cheaper TVs, which is an idea. I could go out and I could purchase a really old cheap TV, like from the 80s if they still exist. And that would be the only way I could really enjoy playing older games, because the older games were not meant to be played on newer TVs. It's just that simple. Unfortunately, it's hard on the eyes, and even without contacts or glasses or perfect eyesight, it's kind of hard. So unfortunately, I don't play those games, and I don't play, like I said, some other games I have that, for similar reasons, the graphics are too distracting because of the lack of quality or performance in some way, prevent it from being enjoyable. So basically, the games I found to be enjoyable are the ones that strike a good balance between performance and quality, um, and playability, depending on if it's multiplayer or if it's you're playing alone. Because that's another thing. I have Grand Theft Auto 5, which is multiplayer, but unfortunately, unless you spend a lot of money, it's more of one of those. It's more of a punching bag type of game. I call certain games punching bag games because you just go in and you take out aggression. But if you really want to build an empire and be like, you get that sense of control, like in The Sims, you have to be honest about what you're doing in the game and what gratification is it giving you in the game. And that's the psychology behind video gaming is interesting because I find certain people don't like certain types of games because they don't provide a certain type of gratification while playing the game. It's why some people play chess and some play checkers, you know. And video games are no different. Some games provide a visceral stress relief where you get to take control of a character and really destroy things in ways that make you feel better, aka Grand Theft Auto, shooting games, punching games, wrestling, fighting games, in general, games that are just focused around conflict of fighting or destructive acts. And that's what Grand Theft Auto is. Yeah, there's a narrative, but it's short, not that long. It's more graphically intense and like going insane with the graphics and the team. Just complete terror and chaos kind of deal. So that's the gratification you get from that. And a lot of games are like that. Twisted Metal, another example. I'm just naming all the games I have, so we have a clear picture of what gratification I've been searching for in the games I've purchased, and why I've eventually decided to land on the ones I have now. As a hobby, I take it quite seriously, I guess. But I have been drawn toward fantasy games, sci-fi games, as I said. I have experienced other types and genres, but for the most part, I haven't found any games that have really resonated and fulfilled the type of gratification that I'm looking for. So, like I said, like for my personal experiences right now, I'm looking to be inspired by narratives that I can really get lost in, and that means games that have a focus on storyline, and that storyline is kind of inspiring me to write in my book that I'm writing right now, which is why I'm writing a sci-fi horror book, so obviously I'm going to be playing games that are either sci-fi or horror. That's exactly what I ended up gravitating toward. But with a focus on survival horror and a balance between survival horror and survival sci-fi, I guess, with balance between narratives and open world character building, which is what Fallout 76 really provides over any other open world game that I've been playing right now, because it provides that same narrative. But as much as I love Grand Theft Auto and Resident Evil, and I'm sorry, Grand Theft Auto and other fantasy games and shooting games like that I have, like Baldur's Gate and Call of Duty, and even some of the Final Fantasy games. The reason why I chose Final Fantasy Final Fantasy Rebirth over the other ones is because of all the Final Fantasy games. It really provides the most whimsical experience. Because I needed a game that wasn't as dark or survival based, and that's kind of what Rebirth is all about. It strikes a good balance. As far as fantasy games, though, I have Skyrim, I have The Witcher, I have Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy Crisis Core, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and then of course I have all the Diablo games, which unfortunately I don't play, simply because those games are almost too immersive in the sense that There's, for one thing, they're third person, which, if like, I don't like third person views unless I'm playing on a computer with really good graphics, because my eyesight's not very good. So I've learned that until I get better eyesight, third person views I can't see very well enough to actually see the screen. So I have to have games that provide more of an immersive experience. And another reason why I don't play some games is for the same reasons. I need more of an immersive experience. Like Fallout 4, I don't play I play Fallout 6 because it provides that immersive experience of multiplayer. I don't like sandbox games that are overwhelming, where you're all alone. It feels like you're in a giant bubble. That can be isolating. So unless I'm actively engaged in a narrative in a game, running around in a big sandbox just seems lonely and depressing. Like, for example, Minecraft. I think Minecraft, for some reason, it's popular and it's made tons of money and people love it, but guess what? I find it the stupidest and boring game I've ever played. Because to me, the gratification, like I said, it provides is not the type of gratification I'm looking for. For some people, world building is what they're looking for, and that provides... It's like the difference between the person that owns a fish versus the person that owns a cat, or a person that owns an animal that requires a lot of attention to really, for both cat and person to really be at their best. If you're simply looking to control and build a world, then Minecraft, totally. You can feel good about the things you build. Spend a lot of money doing that kind of stuff too, but I had to be honest with myself. It's been a while since I've even played video games, and I bought this PS5 about a year ago. I waited a long time to finally buy it, and now the PS6 is coming out soon, so I'm hoping this one will last me long enough before the PS6 comes out. So, because I'm probably going to buy a PS6 when it comes out if I'm lucky enough to get one, but most likely if they're doing the whole franchise thing, they'll make it difficult for most people like me to purchase one early on, so it'll probably be a couple years before I buy a PS6 as well. I'm just glad that I didn't spend too much money on the whole gaming experience, because it's really easy to. Because there's a lot out there. Granted, there's a couple of handhelds that I don't have anymore because they broke. And I haven't bought any. I don't plan on buying any anytime soon. I might look into a portable PS6 in the future, but I think I'm pretty much sold on, in the future, PlayStation's kind of my cup of tea. Unless I buy some kind of PC device, PlayStation's pretty much going to be the way I go. But yeah, I think of all the games, I have 38 games, and of those 38, I play 9. So that's not too bad. 9 out of 38. Granted, that doesn't sound too good on a test score, getting 9 right out of 38, but it could be a lot worse. And granted, those 38 are not actually, if I'm being realistic, are not 38 games I won't play. There's 38 games that I have that are on that I have purchased. So let's be realistic. What games have I purchased that I actually won't play and actually have no intention of playing, unfortunately. So I'm sold on Resident Evil. So let's just say I'll play those games at one point or another, which is kind of reassuring. But Spirit of the North, a stupid purchase, that's one. And I don't even want to go into what that is or why. Unfortunately, Twisted Metal games, I'll never play. I'd have to be really bored, and there'd have to be special circumstances, but I don't think I'd ever play those. So, and I unfortunately bought 2 of those games. That's 3 games right there. And crazy enough, Red Dead Redemption 2, even though it's the best game in the world, and I would play it all the time, but unfortunately, the graphics, just, there's some games that they don't play well on the console for some reason. Um, yeah, and I've tried, but they stutter. They just for some reason they're not up to par. And I think maybe it's because they just play better on PC. Maybe that's it. So that's another one. So 1, 2, 3, 4 games. Uh, unfortunately, the Diablo games too. Like I said, so that's 4, 5, 6 games. Um, and crazy enough, Oblivion Elder Scrolls is an amazing game, but it stutters too much. And like I said, it's too much of an open world immersive game that doesn't provide multiplayer experience. Some of these games I'm noticing there's a reason why they are just better on PC because they were created for PC. PC provides more of an immersive experience for open world games when you're alone because the graphics just you want better graphics when you're in a sandbox because you want that Matrix type reality. You know, you want to be able to interact with NPCs and have them feel real. And unfortunately, PC does it better. So, and I've learned my lesson on all these games. I don't buy games meant for PC on my PlayStation anymore. I don't buy games that came out on previous systems unless they came out on the PS4 or newer, because they just are not meant to be played on newer TVs. Um, and and yeah, so let's count how many games I don't play. So counting everything I just said, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So yeah, 20 games I won't play. Of 38 games, I don't play 20 of them. 20 minus 38, so of that 38, that means I do play uh, I play 18 of them. So yeah, I play almost half of the games, and the reason why the ones I included were Skyrim as a fantasy game. No, I can't do that one. So let's just say I play. Oh yeah, I'll include Skyrim. Um, so let's count the ones I do play. I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7. Alright. This is really hard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do have one game that's pretty cool. It's called Hogwarts Legacy, but unfortunately the graphics too on that game just are not up to par. And it's really hard to really enjoy a game unless you really are invested in it. So if I'm being realistic, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Six, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16. Let me try that again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 17, I play 17 games I have out of the 38 that I bought. So I play almost half of the games I purchase, so it's not too bad. And there may be 1 or 2 games on there I might play if I'm really desperate. So I would say I pretty much broke even, and that's kind of what I was hoping for. It took me some time to really reach this place. Honestly, finding games that you actually enjoy is difficult because in today's world there's just so many options. So once you find a console and a game you like, I think everybody I've ever met always goes through this learning curve, and I'm just explaining my learning curve, and the reasoning behind my decisions that have led me to overcome the learning curve with new knowledge of what I need and what is available. If I did write a review, I don't remember, but this is pretty much my review on the whole gaming experience from the perspective of the PlayStation 5. I highly rate and highly recommend the games that I just mentioned. Jedi, Survivor, Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, Final Fantasy Rebirth, any Resident Evil game, any Silent Hill game for that matter, and of course any Fallout game. I think these are the franchises I've kind of decided upon. Not too bad, really. Star Wars franchise, Resident Evil franchise, Silent Hill franchise, and of course the Fallout franchise. So in reality, even though I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games on my console, I'm only really playing, as far as narratives go and franchises go that support those narratives. Since I'm playing 2 Star Wars games, that's 1 franchise. Of Final Fantasy, that's a 2. Resident Evil is 3, and Silent Hill is 4. And then Fallout is 5. So I'm playing 5 games, even though there's 7 games. So not bad. 5 games, 5 separate narratives. Not so bad. All surrounded sci-fi horror or survival horror. So, and it's really interesting because I can indulge one and then move on to the next, and it kind of flows seamlessly. So I guess basically I have to ask myself, what do I feel like? Do I feel like indulging a narrative that's horror-based, or do I want to indulge a survival-based game that's in a narrative-based setting? So, What's the combination to the lock on the door in Silent Hill 2 that is next to the... I don't know.
It sounds like you are referring.
It's the door next to across from the auto parts store in Silent Hill 2 remake.